Karen Whitmore's coffee mug shattered against her pristine kitchen floor as she stared out her window at what could only be described as a tropical nightmare. 73. She had counted twice. Bright pink plastic flamingos now dotted the Hendersons' front lawn like some demented flock had crash-landed overnight. Each one seemed to mock her with its gaudy presence, their beady black eyes boring into her soul. "This is war," she whispered, her manicured fingers already reaching for her phone to call the HOA emergency hotline she had personally established. The whole mess had started 3 days earlier when Karen, clipboard in hand and measuring tape at the ready, had marched across the street to inform Janet Henderson that her prize-winning petunias were planted 2.3 inches too close to the property line. Section 4.7b clearly states that decorative flora must maintain a minimum of 18 inches from any boundary marker, Karen had announced, tapping her pen against the laminated neighborhood covenant she carried everywhere. Janet, a sweet 60-something retiree who baked cookies for new neighbors, had simply smiled. "Oh honey, these flowers have been here for 15 years. Surely we can make an exception." Exception. The word had hit Karen like a physical blow. In her 7 years as Homeowners Association president, she had built Willowbrook Estates into a monument to suburban perfection. Property values had soared 30% under her iron-fisted leadership. The neighborhood newsletter, which she wrote, edited, and distributed personally, was cited by Better Homes and Gardens as obsessively thorough. Exceptions were the enemy of excellence. "The rules exist for everyone's benefit, Mrs. Henderson. I'll expect those flowers relocated by Friday." Janet's smile had faltered. "And if I don't? Then we'll explore other options." Now, staring at the flamingo invasion, Karen realized Janet Henderson was far more dangerous than her homemade snickerdoodles had suggested. This wasn't just civil disobedience. This was a calculated assault on everything Karen held sacred. The flamingos weren't mentioned anywhere in the 47 pages of neighborhood covenants. A loophole Karen's legal mind was already working to close. Her phone buzzed with the first of what would become 17 calls that morning. "Karen, this is Margaret from Elm Street. Have you seen the Hendersons' yard? It looks like a miniature golf course exploded." "I'm handling it," Karen replied, her voice steady despite the fury building in her chest. But as she hung up and watched old Mr. Chen from next door take photos of the flamingos while laughing with his grandchildren, Karen felt something she hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. The flamingos were ridiculous, gaudy, completely inappropriate for that upscale neighborhood. They were also technically legal. She grabbed her car keys with trembling hands. The emergency HOA board meeting she was about to call would either cement her legacy as Willowbrook's greatest president or mark the beginning of something she couldn't yet name. Either way, Janet Henderson had just made the biggest mistake of her retirement. The flamingos seemed to watch her go, their plastic smiles knowing and patient. The emergency board meeting lasted 4 hours and accomplished absolutely nothing. Karen sat at the head of her dining room table, watching her carefully cultivated authority crumble as board members Tom Reeves and Patricia Mills exchanged increasingly uncomfortable glances. "Look, Karen," Tom said finally, loosening his tie. "The flamingos are tacky as hell, but they're not violating any existing rules. We can't just make up new ones because we don't like something." "We absolutely can," Karen shot back, her voice rising. "We're the governing body of this community. If we allow this chaos to spread, what's next? Garden gnomes? Political signs? Food trucks?" Patricia, ever the peacemaker, leaned forward. "Maybe we could approach Janet diplomatically, offer to help her find a compromise." "I don't compromise with terrorists." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Tom's eyebrows shot toward his hairline. Patricia actually recoiled. Even Karen seemed surprised by her own vehemence, but she pressed on, her voice taking on the manic edge that had been building all week. "Don't you see what she's doing? This is psychological warfare. She's testing our resolve, seeing if we'll bend. Today it's flamingos, tomorrow it's revolution. Every property value in this neighborhood depends on maintaining standards." What Karen didn't mention was the email that had arrived that morning from Prestige Properties. her real estate company. Sales in 3 surrounding neighborhoods had increased 12% this quarter, while Willowbrooks had stagnated. Her boss, Mitchell Carver, wanted to know why the Sure Thing community was underperforming. The Flamingos felt like a personal attack on her professional reputation. Tom stood up, shaking his head. I'm not signing any emergency amendments over lawn ornaments. This whole thing is getting out of hand. After the board members left, Karen sat alone in her living room, staring at the photos she had taken of every single flamingo. She had measured their heights, documented their placement, even researched the manufacturer. Each one cost $12.99 at the local hardware store. Janet Henderson had spent nearly $1,000 on this elaborate middle finger. Her phone rang. Mitchell Carver's name flashed on the screen. Karen, I've been getting calls about some kind of neighborhood war. What's going on over there? She closed her eyes, feeling the careful architecture of her life shifting beneath her feet. It's under control, Mitchell. Just a minor dispute over landscaping. Minor? I heard someone turn their yard into a flamingo sanctuary. That doesn't sound minor. The call lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, Karen understood that her job and her reputation hung in the balance. Mitchell wanted this resolved quickly and quietly. No media attention, no viral social media posts, no reason for potential buyers to look elsewhere. As darkness fell over Willowbrook Estates, Karen stood at her window again, studying the flamingo army. In the porch light, they looked almost militant, like plastic sentries guarding Janet's rebellion. She had built her entire identity around being the person who solved problems, who maintained order, who protected property values and neighborhood standards. But as she watched Janet Henderson emerge from her house to water her still perfectly positioned petunias, Karen realized she was facing an opponent who had nothing left to lose. Janet was retired, her house was paid off, and she clearly didn't care about resale value or neighborhood politics. Karen, on the other hand, had everything to lose. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Detective Ray Morrison, her ex-husband's brother. The family connection had ended badly, but Ray still owed her a favor from the divorce proceedings. Ray, it's Karen. I need to ask you about noise ordinances and public nuisance laws. The flamingos glowed pink in the streetlight, waiting for whatever came next.